Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boring Enterprise Nerdcast, where we are definitely not boring, at least we hope not. But we do talk about enterprise topics and we do the podcast. So I am one of your hosts, Paul Moderman. With me, as always, is the amazing, incredible Yelena Perfilieva. Say hello, Yelena.
Hello, Yelena.
And wonderfully executed as well.
Sweet.
With us today, we have a guest that we all know and love in the SAP ABAP community anyway. We have Lars Hvam Petersen, the founding father, the master of ABAP Get, the purveyor of ABAP Lint, and many other things in the ABAP world. Lars, it is great to have you. What's going on these days?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here trying to be a bit boring, like usual.
That's impossible, Lars.
Too many things going on. You can always check my GitHub profile. There's always a new project. I've actually started making projects or repositories, just empty repositories with ideas, hoping that somebody will find it and then just start making the code.
That's the kind of actually interesting way to do that. I never thought about that.
Sweet.
That's interesting, huh? You know, there's varying degrees of passion, there's varying degrees of skill, there's varying degrees of experience all over the community in terms of ABAP, in terms of SAP development. For you, what is it for you that draws you to do these crazy, sexy, cool ABAP projects? What draws you into ABAP itself?
Oh yeah, so you want the full story?
Let's go for it. Go for it.
So back in the day when I was studying at the university, we did learn a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also had a lot of fun, right? And yeah, I had to pay rent and stuff like that. So I was actually lucky enough to get a job while studying at university. To work with computers and earn money, and it by random accidents it turned out it was SAP and it was ABAP, right? So it made me through university. I could pay my rent and stuff like that, and after that it turned out, oh, there's also jobs in this area. Okay, I have a bit of experience, perhaps I should try getting a job too.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it, right?
Yeah.
But actually reflecting on it, right? So so what makes ABAP interesting? ABAP is old. Some people might say, right? But ABAP is also new, and it's actually a combination of new and old that makes it interesting, because there is always another feature in ABAP that I never tried. So I started with ABAP nearly 20 years ago, and like every week still after 20 years I always find a new feature as part of the language I didn't know and didn't ever consider it be an option, right?
Yep. It's amazing. If you go look at every now and again I just go look at the list of ABAP keywords and I'm like, holy cow, this language is packed, because I do a lot of stuff with like C# or Python, very light on keywords in those languages. ABAP is like this wordy, different, but I like the wordiness of ABAP. I like the feeling of I just wrote a sentence that says what I want to have happen, right? I really enjoy that feeling of it.
It's a fourth generation programming language, right?
Yeah.
So you can almost say that it's low code, because you can take anyone off the street and they can start writing ABAP in no time, right?
Yeah,
that's what would said in the 80s or something about the language, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I also really like debugging.
It has the best debugger. I love the ABAP debugger. Sorry.
Debugging, like in general, right? And in the ABAP world, there's a lot of ABAP code to be debugged.
That's true. That's true.
A lot of bugs everywhere.
And it's like I think it's the most amazing feature for everyone who, especially I came from like mainframe background, and I did a little bit of other languages, maybe similar to Paul. So you start with ABAP, start with SAP, and you realize that you can start debugger, and you can debug SAP's code. It's like, imagine like going into Word and you can debug Word all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, someone probably can, but it's just mind blowing that your code just runs in the same place that many people worked on it. Yeah, very, very interesting and unusual.
You can actually compare that with a modern web browser, right? So in a modern web browser, let a breakpoint in the front-end code, and then the web browser will actually make a breakpoint, right?
Yeah.
But SAP, they delivered like the web browser experience back in many years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Very cool about that. So, okay, so bring us forward a couple of years into like getting into open source and creating projects like ABAP Get, ABAP Lint, that kind of stuff. What drove you to sort of dig in and create those things?
Yeah, one word, desperation.
Desperation. Now let me ask for some more words to explain that.
ABAP doesn't need to be that special and closed environments as some people perceive it, right? So yeah, I wanted to put some ABAP code on GitHub, and yeah, I'm a bit lazy, so I didn't want to copy paste. So let's just write a program that's easy. It's easy to automate the copy pasting to GitHub, so I don't need to do it manually. It will only take. We're not doing this because it's easy. We're doing this because we thought it was easy, right?
Yeah. That describes so much of my day. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's easy, and now actually. So next year will be the 10 years of ABAP Git actually.
Oh, really?
Since I wrote the first blog post. And since then, I spent a lot more hours than it took copy pasting all the code I've written. But it's been a fun journey, right? And writing stuff, you always learn something new regarding like the ABAP language, regarding how GitHub and Git protocols actually work. What is the pros and cons? What doesn't work? So yesterday I was debugging my deflate decompression algorithm. So I implemented a part of setlib that is part of gzip in custom ABAP code because it didn't work with the kernel. Again, well, why would I do that? Well, it doesn't work in the kernel. So again, desperation.
Yeah.
So yeah, in ABAP you can do everything. Just get started and do it.
Yeah. So, okay, I've actually been curious about this. I wanted to ask you, how many, like, do a lot of places, do places that use ABAP Git productively reach out to you for help and support and that stuff? Like, how much are you aware of actual, like, SAP customers or companies using ABAP Git for their own purposes?
Not very much.
Not very much.
There is a list, right, on ABAP Git documentation where I encourage all companies that use it, add their name, and get a link to a company, so your company becomes part of the cool kids, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so ABAP Git is MIT license, so everyone can use it as they like, and that's also the idea from the start. Make it as permissive as possible, so people can use it without necessarily the world knowing, right? Because if you have to send an email and download it behind a firewall or something, you not get contributions, and I would personally not be a user myself. So that being said, I think meeting people in the ecosystem, it's a lot of the people actually knows what ABAP Git is, and they've tried it or they use it. So
I'm actually I'm wondering if SAP support receives any tickets for ABAP Git support.
That would be funny. That would be really funny.
Yeah, so SAP uses parts of ABAP Git for the importing of code into ABAP Cloud Steampunk and the ABAP Cloud programming model on S/4HANA Cloud. So that is part of the offering from SAP, where I guess it's possible to open tickets, right? And some tickets we also get in the open source regarding this.
There's a note here, and maybe Yelena, I may be less versed in this than you. There's a note here on our topic list about clean ABAP as a discussion point today. So can I pass the baton to
Sure,
you,
yeah.
Yelena, for
Yep.
handling this topic, this
Yeah,
delicate,
definitely.
touchy topic?
Yeah, so did you guys adopt clean ABAP as your Lord and Savior? It's the first question I asked to people. I know Lars, actually, I think I don't want to presume, and I definitely want to hear from yourself. I think you might have like slightly mixed feelings about clean ABAP. So do you want to speak to like what's your opinion about it? And clean ABAP, sorry, for someone who somehow miraculously doesn't know what it is, it's a style guide, which is basically a text. It's a document that's maintained on GitHub. It's technically owned by SAP, but it's available for everyone to use. So Lars, can you tell us like what's your opinion as an ABAP visionary of clean ABAP and its role for developers?
As a visionary, I don't know, just a boring that might be right. Yeah, so I think the concept of clean ABAP, right, has existed for forever, right? So everyone, or many organizations have had and should have a development guideline describing just a bit about how that organization prefers to do ABAP development. And actually, if you look at clean ABAP, then some of the things are already in the online help programming style guide, right? And some of these are actually also implemented in Code Inspector even before the style guide was published, because it's something that there are just some parts that makes more sense looking at ABAP code, right? Nowadays, there's a lot of people and organizations pointing to the style guide, because then I think the easy part is, well, then you don't need to invent your own development guidelines. But I think actually you do. So you still need to do your own development guidelines. So the clean ABAP does not cover everything. There are some parts of it, where there is topics of discussion where the organization must adapt their own style. So something like the prefixing of variables. So you prefix, don't prefix. Well, hi, my name is Lars. I prefix variables.
Oh no, that's funny.
Topic. And yeah, I think even though this is an official SAP document, right, or semi-official, or some people from SAP
yeah, that's a big question.
Usually there is a lot of very knowledgeable people in an organization with many years of ABAP experience, right? Let them chip in into the development guidelines and actually add whatever they think, right? And I think the worst thing you can do is just say, okay, we follow the SAP style guide. You actually need to have an active discussion inside the organization to move your code in some direction. And like many places, the programming guidelines, they were done in the 90s, and then we finished that. Well done, good job.
That's right.
Again, the language does evolve, and also the code evolves, right? And in an organization, you have to decide what is really important to you. So do we remove the prefixes, or do we have some other stuff that is more important for that organization to move the code in that direction, right? So some of the direction that I find important, and I'm working on with some of the open source projects and static analysis ABAP into EA, is actually to try to move code in a direction where it becomes more ABAP cloud compatible. So there's an open issue on clean ABAP, the clean ABAP repository, where the clean ABAP repository actually recommended using deprecated data elements. And of course, as part of this should be part of the overall development guideline. Try to actually choose data elements that are marked as released whenever possible, right? And again, I'm a lazy developer, so I don't want to remember what is released and what is deprecated. I just want to let the computer tell me, okay, you need to use this instead. Oh, okay,
Right.
I don't know, perhaps
Sure
I can
thing.
Yeah. But let me just move on, pick that one, move on, next. So also having a development guideline is one thing, right? But I think it should also be supported by computers. So in a way, so computers, I mean static analysis, so that the humans don't have to do all the boring stuff, like, does this have a prefix on this variables? Is this uppercase, lowercase? Are there any problems with white space? Humans should not really spend their time on checking that in the code review. In the code review, you need to check the business logic and the overall structure of the program, where I think I'll say computers cannot really check that just yet, but that might be
Coming soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming soon to a chat GPT near you. Yeah.
So my point is, don't put all trust in things made from SAP. Have your own opinion, right, and evolve it some direction.
Interesting. I like that. I like that statement. Let me ask you this: while we're just sort of navel gazing ABAP a little bit here, I'm going to skip down in our list a little bit here to this number 8. Yes, dear listeners, they are numbered. If you had to program, if ABAP was eradicated from the universe, what language would you love to work in, Lars?
Love to work in that's a big question, right? So when I don't do ABAP, I do TypeScript, and I've been doing TypeScript for quite some time. Mainly because TypeScript is just like JavaScript. It runs server side, client side.
Yep.
And everything that runs in the browser nowadays is JavaScript, which is basically kind of the same as TypeScript. I like types because I come from a type programming language, so you cannot get around nowadays knowing some JavaScript.
Yeah.
So basically, just make Java good. Let's just do some TypeScript because it's what gets me through the day, right? And
gets the job done. It gets a lot of jobs done, actually. Like, I think JavaScript and TypeScript as its relative is like got to be among the most used languages in the world of development. It must be right up near the top. I mean, everybody, even if it's not the most popular language of your particular job, you're going to see it go by. I mean, it's the language of the web. I mean, everybody who programs is going to touch some slice of JavaScript / TypeScript somewhere out there.
I try to avoid writing any Python code because I can do it all in TypeScript. I try to avoid doing any Java code because I can do it in TypeScript.
Right.
Do I love TypeScript? Well, no, it's not super good. It's JavaScript, right? Nobody loves that. What programming would I love, right? So I think the most joy I've had programming was doing some standard ML.
Okay.
Functional programming. I did that a long time ago. I had a lot of fun doing this functional programming. So some functional programming I probably love. Typically, I also joke that if ABAP is gone, right, you can always start doing PL1 programming, which is even older than ABAP.
Super old, yeah.
And then there is also APL, which has a lot of Greek letters, and it looks like crazy stuff. So 3 answers. So some standard ML, some PL1, some APL. And yeah, I think if you look at my technology choices, I try not to be very smart. So don't pick all the latest stuff. Don't pick any new program languages.
Right.
Thing with all the old stuff without
Right.
So a lot of the choices are very low on buzzwords. I guess people were expecting like pop, whatever, some names du jour. Very, very low
so
key.
if somebody wants to try APL, there's an online simulator. I'm not. It looks like crazy.
That's good. Fun. That's good. I like that. So okay. So we skipped down a little bit. So I noticed that your name is on the ABAP to UI5 repository. Are you a heavy contributor to that? Have you done much with that?
I've not tried installing it. I have not tried running it. I've not done any parts of the active development.
Okay.
I'm trying to help out with the static analysis parts.
Oh, okay.
So this guy or girl that is building it, it's the first time using Git and GitHub. So I try to move it in some direction, like do a protected main branch, do static analysis before merging to main, and yeah, again, this is using ABAP lint, right? And as always in ABAP lint, there's another bug, because ABAP is a messed up programming language. So there's a few bug fixes here and there that has to be fixed, and there are some stylistic issues that causes some errors in the linter. Then I just fixed the stylistic issues. So I'm adding white space here and there. What's my latest contribution? And I think lately there was a tweet yesterday with the ABAP to UI5 that it is now 7.02 compatible.
Oh, they're really going down low then, huh? Yeah. Wow.
And for this, the downport feature of ABAP lint was used. So ABAP lint knows a lot about the syntax of ABAP and has some functionality to actually take higher syntax code and automatically make it lower syntax compatible.
Right. Interesting.
And it also goes the other way, actually. So something like if you do a create object in a 7.02 syntax, it can automatically import that to new in higher syntax, and it can also downport that again.
The other way around. Yeah.
So the evil plan is sometime to actually develop ABAP Git in 740 something syntax. Take all the 7.02 code, automatically upport it to become to use more of the new language features.
Sure.
And develop in 740, but still have the 7.02 version automatically created from the 740 code.
Right. I like that. I like that.
It will save us a lot of time and a lot of syntax.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, short story, trying to help out with some recommendations and setup of the Git parts.
Nice. Okay, that's cool. Because I checked out that project itself, and I tried a few things, and I was curious to get your take on it. But I think if you're just helping with the static analysis side of it, maybe you don't have any overall thoughts on the project, or maybe you do. Do you have any overall thoughts on that project?
I think the project is cool.
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go. So sound endorsement.
A sound endorsement. A resounding cool from Lars Hvam.
It's cool, right? but actually, so if you take a few notes of it, right, it doesn't need to take that much to actually build a web application from an backend, right?
Yeah.
Taking some of the guides and the tools that SAP provide, it needs to generate 5 different artifacts that are linked together and things that I don't remember what it's called. do a CDS view, do a service finding, do an OData layer, something.
Yeah.
And after that, you can start actually building your application, right? So this is a good example that you can actually do some more simple or rapid development with just a few quite good tools.
Yeah. This is, I think I think very similarly along with you in this one is that like this project is a phenomenal way to get the early feedback on some business logic and some apps that you're kind of testing out for your teams, right? It's like it's so easy to get some nice feedback on kind of what you're thinking of doing, even if maybe at the end of the day you're full blown complicated app and maybe you have to go back and write it something else. But for a fast cycle time, there's nothing better. It's great to go from ABAP to browser. Boom, there you go. Try it out, team.
Yeah.
I really like it.
And it also does show again that just like ABAP, it is possible to deliver innovation to all the customers of a large percentage of customers. So 702 and up to everything. To deliver innovation on a technical level that does not require upgrading of the system. And do note that there's actually a few notes on this, right? So if you choose to use ABAP to UI5, you can upgrade that on your own pace, right? There's no big bang upgrade of the system. You can also choose, and now I'm using hands to articulate here. You can always also choose that if you develop two different applications using ABAP to UI5, you can actually have two different versions of the framework installed by just renaming the classes. So have one set of the classes here that runs an old version of UI5 that uses this application, and a new one here, and then you can upgrade these at will. So that you never get into a situation where you have one framework that is used by hundreds of applications, and then when you need to upgrade that framework, you need to regression test hundreds of applications, because then it becomes the same problem like when upgrading an SAP system. And having several copies of a framework here. Note this framework does not have any persistence, right? So it's a bit easier with those frameworks. So upgrading that framework as part of an application, you can actually set up a continuous integration, make a copy of the open source repository, automatically rename it using ABAP links. ABAP links can also do automatic renaming of ABAP objects. Open a pull request to your repository with your full application, and then it will actually in the pull request show if there is any syntax errors with adopting the new ABAP to UI5 version.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. See, that's cool. I like that. I hadn't thought about those. I hadn't thought about those ramifications of the combined tool set there. That's really nice. I like that.
So you can actually see this as like a Dependabot thing that says, let me upgrade this NPM package or this piece of code to something. You get is this something that can easily be adopted? So no static errors. And oh yeah, it is. Okay, let me just use this for this application. So what I actually said here is that in this scenario I actually recommend doing code duplication, because it gives you a lot of flexibility in updating the applications. And it doesn't really matter, to me at least, that the code is duplicated as long as you have the automated process to update it.
That's some controversial opinion.
You heard it here first. Hot takes.
You heard it here first. Major expose. So I have a totally random question, and mostly for Lars, but Paul, of course, please feel free to chime in.
No.
So if you were to set up your dream tools, like your dream ABAP Creator Studio or whatever, some kind of tooling package as an ABAP developer, what would it be? And it could be existing, imaginary, just go with it. Like what's your like ABAP Creator Studio TM of your dreams?
So I think I actually created an empty repository.
It's like DIY.
No, so I think so because I came up with the name. It's called the ABAP Mini Lab.
Mm.
So yeah, so the trouble nowadays is that installing ABAP, an ABAP system locally, the developer edition is 752, and yeah, it's still working. It's a kind of a mess. So the idea of having an ABAP mini lab becomes more relevant as time passes. So what does it look like, right? Yeah, what does it look like? There's a lot of stories here. So how many hours do you have for this recording?
I mean, we were off the clock with Paul, so we can keep going.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I regret my life every time I start Eclipse.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to start Eclipse. However, I am comfortable with starting the Visual Studio Code. It actually starts up it is not the fastest editor in the world, right? But it's okay for my preference.
Yeah.
And it doesn't crash, and it gets new features and stuff. It's a perfect editor, but it's very accessible and okay, and has a lot of good extensions. Again, check the ABAP extensions with syntax highlighting and outline. So I want to do my ABAP development in Visual Studio Code, right?
Yep.
And for those that don't know, we also have the ABAP ecosystem homepage, so where new, fresher ABAP developers can try out some ABAP code. Search the internet for exercism. It's free. Just log in, and then you get a web-based editor where you can execute some ABAP code. So actually building on that idea, edit your ABAP code in Visual Studio Code, have it run locally. And the way it runs locally here is taking the ABAP code, translating that to JavaScript. And as part of this, it has always been possible, but it's getting more and more possible as part of the transpile ABAP code to run a SQLite database. So my ideal setup would be local development with transpile ABAP code, because again, that is what we can do. Use SQLite. And why use SQLite instead of HANA? Well, desperation. Because if you want to install something like the HANA Express, you need 16 gigabytes of memory. Running SQLite, you can run that even in the browser or on an iPhone. So all requirements versus no requirements, right? And do note that while doing development, right? So if you do development and you write unit tests, then you have actually unit tests. So you don't need all the database parts of a real system. You also don't need massive data. So perhaps you just need a few data here and there to actually do your development. It's only when it needs to run a real test in a real system that later that becomes relevant. So doing some setups like that, I think is possible, and we'll see that happening.
Awesome. Paul, do you have any about creator studio of your dreams?
So my feelings are the same about the editor. Like I love visual. The experience of Visual Studio Code is to me light years ahead of any other development. Like I choose Visual Studio Code, and I only break away from it if I absolutely have to on other things, right? So for editing, IDE experience, for package, 100% Visual Studio Code. Part of me likes what Lars described in the exorcism stuff with the transpilation and the SQLite. Of course, that's great. I also don't mind having a big gigantic local S4 instance on my machine If I need to borrow some data and logic from somebody else's thing that I might need to poke around with. But I feel like that's a taste thing more than anything, right? So, who cares?
And yeah, so of course you need real systems to test the real thing, but you can get a long way. And in the beginning, just trying to get some feedback locally and then test it on a real system. If it fails on the real system, go back, fix the error so you never run into that error again, right?
Yeah.
And do also note here that if you run the ABAP code locally, do transpilation and so on, then you have cheap branching. So just a folder with some files, that's a branch. So you can have 100 versions of the same program on the same machine just because it's a folder on the file system with a different file.
I like it. I like it.
So I'm curious, as far as education goes, are you aware of like universities in Denmark preparing specifically ABAP developers or SAP developers?
No, not really.
Okay. That might be a thing, yeah, because in the US, at least what I have observed, that's really the case, that I don't really see ABAP developers to be kind of trained in, because in all the educational institutions that I talk to, they're all preparing functional consultants. So that makes me kind of worry and wonder what's going to happen with ABAP.
So I studied computer science, right? And I think there was one semester where we had 5 different new programming languages that we had to work out, right? So actually, I think the choice of programming language doesn't really matter that much when teaching. You learn how to learn stuff, right?
Yeah.
Over one programming language or another, it's just different kind of syntax. The problem with ABAP is there's a lot of syntax, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, well so I think that kind of wraps up the main content portion, I guess you could say, of our podcast. But Lars, would love to give you the floor for anything you want to promote to the outside world, any projects you want to say, give a shout out to, or whatever. Like anything you want to promote, please, you have the floor.
Or any messages you would like to send out to the world.
Yeah. So so we did talk about the ecosystem homepage, which where people can try to write some ABAP. So learning ABAP on ecosystem, I think this doesn't really have a curriculum of stuff to learn, but it makes it easy to run and try to do some ABAP. It's getting closer to 8,000 students that have actually tried ecosystem. And
awesome.
Was it 156,000 submissions. So a submission is when somebody's written some code and want to run the unit tests for that code.
Oh, sure.
And we have the ABAP Git community call coming up beginning next month, and everyone is welcome. It's an hour online, and check out the ABAP Git issues if somebody is interested. Usually we have fun and get distracted with other stuff and don't really get through the agenda, but it's all good.
That's good. Well, so on behalf of us, Lars, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking about really deep, nerdy ABAP stuff with us. Thanks for educating us on various things here. From the Boring Enterprise Nerds, we just want to say thanks, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. And remember, ABAP is like the sun, it will keep shining for a million years.
There we go, listeners.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.